Female conscious breathing, bleeding from the head. Sounds like an assault.
That's us.
The first port of call on a Saturday night for these paramedics is a party that got out of hand.
Ambulance now.
Troy Jackson has been doing this job for 30 years and knows how to show authority when needed.
This isn't a question of yes or no. You're going to go to the hospital. Okay?
This young woman has a head injury. She doesn't want to go to hospital for fear of the cost it might entail. The paramedic tries to calm her down.
All right. Did you buy those jeans like that, or were they...
Okay, if you make a dad joke right now, just don't.
You're fine. Relax.
This paramedic in his 50s has seen his fair share of mass shootings and their aftermaths.
Nothing.
He says guns are a public health
like,
problem that affects medical professionals as well as the victims.
Every person that you see on an ambulance, every person that carries a badge, that's a firefighter, that's a paramedic, that's a police officer, that's an ER physician, everybody that has to deal with this stuff it's our lane. And it's made our lane because, you know, there really is no way to regulate this in a responsible way right now.
Emergency medical technicians, or EMTs, stand on the front lines of America's gun violence epidemic, as do surgeons.
It's not okay for a child to leave their home and not return in the evening because of gun violence. It's not okay for people to go to a church, synagogue, concerts, work, and not come home because of gun violence. And should be done.
Dr. Joseph Sakran is a trauma surgeon. At the age of 17, he was shot in the neck after a high school football match. Since then, he has dedicated his life to saving those of others. Here he is trying to rally the newly elected members of the U.S. House of Representatives.
There is only one thing that could be more gratifying than giving someone else that same second chance I received. And that's preventing the injury from ever happening.
In November, it was he who launched the "This is our lane" hashtag on social media. Dr. Sakran was incensed by the NRA's tweet telling surgeons not to meddle with gun violence. The doctor's reaction went viral. First-hand accounts and pictures of bloody operating rooms followed. This is our lane was their way of saying that, yes, they were in fact experts in gun violence. Nearly 40,000 people were shot dead in 2017, the deadliest year in the United States since 1996. It is common knowledge, though, that statistics like these won't change the opinion of a large part of the population. The right to bear arms is enshrined in the Constitution and part of the American identity.
It's a good release, form of meditation.
Tony is the manager of a shooting range in the state of Maryland. He says the weapon is not to blame, just the person who pulls the trigger. So banning weapons is not an option.
I'm just, what would be easy. It's nobody's lane, okay, to try to pull rights away from the American people that have been here since the dawn of the country, okay? If you feel a certain way, that's your right to your opinion, okay? But it definitely isn't your right, okay, to try to actually come take my gun, you see?
The argument is a much repeated one among gun owners and members of the NRA.
Let's just say someone wants to cut their hand while they were cooking. Should we ban knives? And I know you've heard this time after time, but the car accidents that we have, okay? Should we ban cars?
That was in Maryland. In the neighboring state of Virginia, gun laws are more lax. Weapons don't need to be registered, and no permit is needed to buy one.
She has no past medical history. She has a prescription because of their blood supply.
In Richmond, Dr. Paula Ferrada alternates operations with the training of young surgeons.
In case of bullet injuries, it helps us see which cavity do you have to go first. But if somebody comes and they're doing compressions, CPR, cardiac compressions, if the heart is not moving, then we know not to resuscitate. side, or this
Every
one
day
I'm
for the past 10
completely
years,
broke?
Dr. Ferrada
Or-
has been taking care of gunshot victims.
It is part of the job, but I find it always hard to recover, and I don't think that is something that anybody, any human really gets used to, looking at a mother's eye and telling them, I'm sorry that your son is not coming back.
Troy Jackson's whole life, meanwhile, has been marked by gun violence. In the last 6 years, 8 people he knew died by gunshot. A month ago, he himself tried to end his life with a pistol.
Throughout my career, I've been involved in a lot of shootings and stabbings and violence, and it leaves its mark. Every call takes something away.
60% of deaths by firearm are suicides. Mass killings represent just 2% of the whole body count. Most medics do not advocate for a complete ban on weapons, but for more restrictions and for violence prevention.